housekeeping, the field of housekeeping. I got my first housekeeping job when I was 16 years old, cleaning condos at a ski resort. That industry has changed my life.
Welcome to the Fueling Deals Podcast, the podcast that teaches how to accelerate your business growth through all types of deals. It's time to fuel up, so buckle in with your host, Corey Kupfer.
There are only two ways to grow your business: organically through sales, marketing, and providing great products and services, and inorganically through deals. Too many companies focus only on the first way, organic growth. Welcome to the podcast, which will help accelerate your business growth inorganically. My guests are a huge variety of deal makers and experts on all types of deals who have personal experience that can help you grow, get clear, learn best practices, and avoid mistakes. We discuss everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions to smaller deals that you can do even without significant capital. My guest today is Ralph Peterson. Uneducated, unskilled, but unwilling to give up, Ralph Peterson quit high school at the age of 16 when he was told he was a hands-on learner and destined for a manual labor job. After working for more than 8 years as a laborer at a construction company, Ralph knew he was capable of more. At the ripe old age of 24, he quit his job and returned to school. He's earned a GED, and more than 20 years later, Ralph has an associate's, 2 bachelors, and a master's degree. Today, Ralph is a successful entrepreneur, owning and operating a management development and consulting company. He's an internationally syndicated columnist, author of 3 books, professional speaker, and advocate for adult basic education. And what's not in his bio is that Ralph is also a Ironman triathlete. And, I was joking with him that whenever I see him, I see pictures of him mainly running in really cold places. So, Ralph, it's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that intro. You can do that whole intro over again. This is your life. I love it.
I love it. So before we delve into some of the things that are in that intro and what you're doing now, I actually want to take you back. We heard what happened from 16 on, but I actually want to take you back even earlier than that and ask, when you were a little kid growing up, what was it that you wanted to be?
I always wanted to be a writer, actually. I always wanted to tell stories. I love telling stories. And from the age of 8, I declared I was going to be a writer. And my grandmother, bless her heart, was like, of course you can be a writer. She was really the only one who believed in me when I was 8.
It's always great to have somebody that believes in you no matter what you say, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. So what was the first real business you started, however you define that?
Selling baseball cards, actually, was my first business. I was 13, 14 years old, and I went to a mall, and it was the first time I had actually seen, there was a show where people had all these tables in the middle of the mall, and you were buying and selling baseball cards. And I started, of course, I just went there to spend every dime I had ever earned because I wanted all these cool baseball cards. And somebody said, do you have this card? Because I'll buy it from you. And all of a sudden I made my first transaction where somebody paid me. And I was like, wait a minute, you can do this? And I started my first company called Collectibles for Kids.
I love it. It's a great name.
Yeah. And I would do the malls. I would go to malls. And I got to tell you, I learned things that you would not think you would learn as a kid being an entrepreneur. I learned about theft. I had a bunch of people stealing my baseball cards. I learned about displays, how to set up displays, how to position your cards so you weren't used, because you always had to have your eyes on them. I didn't know that. I mean, other kids were stealing my cards because I didn't know that I thought people were trustworthy. I had no idea that people would be swiping. I learned so much just by working the mall circuit with baseball cards.
I love it. That's so great. So give us just in terms of what your company does now at a high level, just give the audience an idea of what you're doing. After this whole journey you had, it said management consulting in your bio. Tell us what you do.
I am actually a teacher. So if we broke it down to the basic level, I teach people how to manage systems better. I work specifically in long-term care, and even more specifically in the ancillary department. So I work in housekeeping, laundry, maintenance, dining, and I am a process expert. So I go in and I take a process and we we break it down to its finest elements, and we fix, correct, teach, and oversee. So really what I do is I teach people how to manage a process, and then I get paid on an ongoing basis to continually follow up and ensure. So it's that piece. That's the management piece. It's the teach and then ensure, the oversight.
So that's great. So in terms of deals, obviously, this is the Fueling Deals podcast. Our listeners are interested in how to do deals to grow their business organically. And we really talk about, the full range of deals, all kinds of deals. So talk to me a little bit about some of the kinds of deals that you've done in your business life.
Deals are, well, let me back up and let me tell you this. I'll tell you a quick story about how I even went out on my own, because I worked for a company for 13 years doing sales. So I was really in the sales business. I was selling a management service. So it'd be like a turnkey kind of management service for long-term care. And I wanted to be a professional speaker. Again, I love telling stories. I love being in front of the group. And so I really was trying to break out into speaking while making that speaking work for me in my own business. And it happened that I was speaking. I spoke for a group a few times, and they never had a lot of money. And then one day the person who puts on the event, the program chair, she called and said that they had a speaker back out and wanted to know if I would do it, but there was absolutely zero money. So there was no opportunity, there was no money, but she would make it up for me in the future. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. It's not that big of a deal. I'll go do it. And I did a seminar called Housekeeping as a Business. And I broke down the process of housekeeping, like right down to its final, like the cost, how to staff it, how to pay, everything about it. At the end of the seminar, this free seminar I was giving, a guy in the back was trying to take video with his phone. The entire time he's trying to take my video, trying to take video with the phone. I don't care. But at the end of it, he comes up to me and he says, I've been trying to take your video, he's like, you must sell this as a video. I said, you don't need it as a video. You should just hire me. And he said, are you serious? Would you think about doing this as a consultant basis? I turned that free speech into my own business with that one meeting. So for those of you who are like, I don't want to speak for free, it pays sometimes.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so from there, what have you done to continue to grow your business? What have you either done in terms of your own deals or seen clients in your industry do to grow through deals?
So I've really niched myself. I have solved the problem that people have on either side of this realm. So understand that the business that I'm in, there's two competing business models that I deal with. One competing model is a company that we're talking about for housekeeping, laundry, maintenance, and dietary in long-term care. One business will come in and they will take over every aspect of it. They'll take over all your staff. They'll take over all your purchasing, all your training, all your oversight, the management responsibilities. They will literally, for one specific price a month, they'll take over the entire department for you. On the very other end of that business model, there's another company that offers similar services, except they don't want to own any part of your staff. And generally, they don't own any part of your supply chain either. In other words, the only thing that they want to provide for you is a manager and the oversight. So they'll pay the manager and they'll provide oversight, but they don't want to pay your staff and they don't want to buy your supplies. So those are the two competitors. One, they buy everything, and the other don't buy anything, but they both provide the management training and the oversight.
So let's stop there for a second. So the first model is basically an outsourced model. You're outsourcing everything to them, right?
Yep.
And then on the other one, it's also outsourced, but you're only outsourcing small aspects, the management aspect, whatever.
Management, yep.
But you're not outsourcing the rest of your employees. You still have those. Okay,
that's right. Yeah. In the middle, I have found that for a variety of reasons, there are nursing home companies and owners and administrators who would love to be able to hire the expert, have them come in and develop a program for that specific facility. But they, for one reason or another, cannot give you either one of those elements. They can't give you the staff, they can't give you the manager, or sometimes they can't give you any of it. They'd rather will you just come in and show me how to do it? And so that's how I started. I was like, yes, I will be the guy. I'll fill that middle road. I'll come in and I'm not going to take over anything. I will just come show you how to do it. I'll write a plan for you, a job routine, a basic program for you, right down the middle that you can own, take and keep and take and walk away. You don't have to do business with me again. I'll be there for 3 months. And that was my business model for a while, that I was only in for 3 months and then I would leave.
So that's a consulting. So we're not outsourcing here. We're doing a deal to provide consulting and training.
That's right. That's right. I had a little ace in my pocket, and the ace in my pocket is I knew that once I left in 3 months, everybody would stop doing the program. It's simply without the oversight piece. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest program ever. It could be a program that saves people's lives. If there's nobody overseeing the people doing it, they will stop doing it. It's just the way it is. So I knew that. To get in, I'd have to go in for 3 months. I'd write the program and I would hand it off to them. And then I would follow back up. A couple of months later, I'd walk the building with the owner. I'd say, how is everything? And we'd find what I knew it was going to find. None of the systems were in place. The money that they saved, they're spending again. The staffing hours that they adjusted, they got back. None of the routines. The building wasn't looking well. The food wasn't presenting well. And I'd go, I do offer another service, and that other service is the oversight piece. So I still don't own any staff. I still don't own the management piece. I'm still not going to buy your supplies. But in addition to getting my program, you get me on a monthly basis to oversee and ensure. And that is how I've made my business to be sustainable.
Got it. And let's talk about that model, because is that a model that currently relies upon you personally? Is there ways you're looking to scale that? Obviously, a lot of people who are consultants who do in various industries that do what you do, and certainly those of us who are speakers as well, are often looking at how we can put some of this, online, how we can duplicate it, how we can scale it. Tell me what you're doing and what you may be looking to do in the future.
Absolutely. So when I first started, it was all me and only me. I was doing everything myself, and I was literally flying to the facilities. Facilities are not near my house. I literally have to drive 6 or 7 hours or fly to them. So they are far away, and it is costly. But I just expanded, and I just got a bunch more facilities. I was able to negotiate with the same client I had who had other facilities that I wasn't working in. And I just kept, every month I would share with him the financials. I would say, this is where we started, this is where we are, showing all the positives that we're creating, so that when he had these new facilities coming on, I would say, if you'd like me to take a look at them, if you'd like. And that's how I've grown my business. Of course, I've grown it to a point where I would either have to move to the facilities or I have to hire somebody. And I did just hire a director of operations. And so now I can double my business without much problem now, because I do have that the backup support, which is the director of ops now.
So that's great. So that's a hire. And listen, some people, I consider, there's always a question about how you define a deal, right? And some people say, oh, you just hired somebody. But for me, it's you actually, that's the kind of deal, right? This is an important person. This is a strategic person in your growth. And I'm sure you thought about who you need there and what type of incentives that person needs to have and what the comp plan should be. And, so, you're structuring a mini deal with that person.
1,000,000%. And we had been talking, this gentleman and we've been talking for months. And because I have seen the writing on the wall that if I keep doing what I'm doing, there's no chance I can do it by myself. I have to it makes sense for me to bring somebody else into this. And so there was a gentleman that I worked with in the past, and I know him really well, and I trust him. And we have been talking and negotiating. And, quite frankly, I think one of the funnest parts of this whole process was coming up with a benefit package. But, what am I going to offer him as far as beyond the pay? And I'm just starting out. He's my first real, full-time employee. He's super expensive to begin with. I don't have a lot of money, so I can't buy him a lot of things. But because he's salary, I certainly can talk about sick days. I could talk about personal days. I can talk about vacation days. And as I was thinking about those things, I was thinking about Netflix and Google and all these new companies, Apple and Microsoft, and how they approach benefit time for their upper people, and the whole idea that there's no cap on vacation and there's no set rules on sick time or personal days. If you need it, take it. Let's just have the conversation, be smart. I was like, that's the kind of employer I want to be. And so it was really fun to call him and give him minimums instead of maximums. It was really nice to say, I think it's appropriate that we at least schedule out 2 weeks a year for vacation. I mean, if you want 3 or 4, it's fine. But let's just have a conversation about it in advance so we can plan it. But you have to at least take 2. And so he says, well, how many do I get? Like, well, you get at least 2. Well, what does at least 2 mean? It means I really want you to take 2, but if you want to take 3, go ahead. 4, I don't care. But we just have to be smart about it. And, so I love the idea of being in that position to negotiate. I think I'm just proud of myself, to be honest. I think it's pretty great.
No, I love it. And one of the things that's exciting to, of having you on the podcast, other than the fact that, we always have a good time when we hang out and you're always interesting, is that my intention of this podcast is to really have a wide variety of entrepreneurs and experts on all stages of their businesses. So, we have some people on who are doing major, huge mergers and acquisition deals, et cetera. But there are so many people out there that are, and listen, you're running a successful business. It's just smaller and earlier stage than some others and more dependent upon you. And so many business owners are, in fact, the majority of businesses are more like that than my big clients that are doing big M&A deals. So to start thinking at that stage on what types of deals you could do to help your business grow going forward, and whether it's bringing in talent, whether it's, down the line, some other kind of strategic alliance or joint venture or, other arrangement that you may be doing is exciting. So I'm wondering if you've thought through, because obviously you anticipated, you said you were thinking for a while, you knew you would need a person like this.
I knew I was going to be able to expand with my current client. I knew that I was going to get more facilities with him,
right?
More opportunity. And I knew that I needed to be able to handle it. And so the only way to handle it, well, there's two ways of going about it. There are 2 things that I did. One was hire him. And the other is I have started to go and do an awful lot more online. So we're doing, weekly webinars with their clients. I'm trying to make it so that I travel less and do more.
Yeah, and so it's scalable. So
it's scalable.
So on the webinars, are you? Do you have any partner in that, or are you doing that in house, basically with some tech?
Just me.
Okay,
just
that's
me.
Great.
So I offer 2 different product lines when it comes to education. So I talked about the housekeeping and the laundry and the dietary, the oversight piece, which is a big component of my business. But another part of my business that is really, really taken off right now, organically, by the way, it's really just you speak about something and then you're getting 1 or 2 nursing homes that get on board. And I've just really been growing. And that is the whole systems and process breakdown for nursing. And so that is going to be good 75% online, which we can do. Whereas the housekeeping, laundry, that kind of oversight, that really does require boots on the ground in the facility, checking stuff out, meeting with staff, handling problems. With the strict education of processes, I can do that a lot more with teams virtually. And that's exciting.
Love it. So that's going to be a different type of deal with your client or clients, because obviously it's a different arrangement when you're coming in and doing on-site consulting and management and oversight than when you're probably sending somebody to an online portal, an education portal or whatever, and they get access, by users and that kind of stuff, right?
It kind of is. It actually, the model, the business model is the same, as in from the revenue point of view, it is a monthly fee, just like my current revenue model. It is touch points with me on a weekly basis, which is the same, and touch points on a monthly basis. The only difference is with the housekeeping, laundry, and dietary, I'm in the facility, or one of my guy is in the facility. Whereas on the quality assurance piece, I can do most of it virtually. It's still the same amount of time, the same amount of touch points, the same business model, just not having to be physically in the facility.
Totally got it. So I'm curious because, the way my mind works when I work with entrepreneurs, is why I love working with entrepreneurs. People say to me, hey, who's your ideal client? Is it, huge companies? Is it small companies? And I'm always like, listen, size is less important to me than growing companies of any size. People who have a vision, people looking to grow. So even if they're small or, they're very large, I'd rather work with a smaller company looking to grow than a large company that's totally stagnant. Because growth companies is really where, I provide value. So I'm always interested in working with entrepreneurs to look at what their growth plans are and the different models and the different kind of deals they can do to grow. So, I'm curious because, so for example, there are deals that you could do to do train the trainer models, right? Where you could provide this content online and then train people to try to handle it in-house. But you haven't gone that way so far. So I might be curious to ask why or whether you might do that in the future. There are obviously other people who have different models and other people that do maybe not exactly, but similar things to what you do. Down the line, you could potentially merge, acquire, et cetera. Have you considered that? Why away would you not do that kind of deal? And then, I'm sure there are other possibilities in terms of strategic alliances or joint ventures or other kind of deals that better in your industry that I do, that you may be considering or have ruled out. So I'd love to hear, whether you've considered some of these various types of deals in the future and what you've ruled out and why and what might be on the horizon.
So that's a super great question. I really actually appreciate the question because it helps me just continue to articulate in my head, because the first thing that you were talking about is what's your favorite client? And do you want to do with a bigger one or a smaller one? I want to work with clients who are motivated and they're passionate and they want to get better. I did work with some that would drain the life out of me, and I'm working for myself and I'm working 14 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'm like, why do I have them as a client? If I'm doing more work in your nursing home than you are, that's a challenge, right? So it's like, I don't like that. So for me, it's really not about the size of the company. It's the intention of the company. It's the motivation of the company. Like you were saying, like you're interested in growth companies. Me too. But I don't care about whether or not they're going to rule the world tomorrow. I want to make sure that they're taking care of we're providing the best care for our residents. I mean, that's really what gets me all jazzed up. The second part of your question, which I find the most in my intro, as you alluded to, everybody has a charity, right? So some people have their charity is the Humane Society. Some people it's the firefighters. Other people it's the military. Mine is adult basic education. It is that person right now who, for whatever reason, didn't finish high school, or even if you did finish high school, but you never went anywhere else and you just work in some menial construction job, and it's 5-6 years out of high school, you're 24, 25 years old, which is where I found myself, and you're just simply going, come on, there's got to be more for me than this. That is really what gets me excited about being able to reach those people. And housekeeping, the field of housekeeping, I got my first housekeeping job when I was 16 years old, cleaning condos at a ski resort. That industry has changed my life. It has given me every opportunity I have. I live in New York City. I mean, let's not get crazy, right? I'm doing pretty well for a housekeeper, which is how I always saw myself. And I saw myself as a housekeeper negatively until I finally figured out that being a housekeeper was a very positive thing. And so where am I going with this story? I am in the process of building a business model where I will teach other young entrepreneurs how to start and run their own housekeeping business. Whether it's cleaning houses, cleaning banks, cleaning schools, stadiums, nursing homes, hospitals, it is a workable business model that you really can learn. It's almost as easy as the lemonade stand kind of model. It just has a little more, a few more pieces and parts to it. But if you have a vehicle and a vacuum and you have a little bit of intent, I can show you how to get up and running in no time and start being your own boss, making your own money, running your own housekeeping company. That's really gets me excited.
I love that. And is your intention on that to have some sort of business model and have a deal with these people? Is I know, is any of it, is there any nonprofit, a piece of that? What's the deal and business model going to look around, around doing that?
It'll be two things. One is imagine it as a three-part, which is basically, again, all of these business models that I have in my head, kind of cookie cutter, they fit the same way. It's just because it's my model. So one part is education, the other part is support, and then the third part, which we haven't really talked about, is books and literature and podcasts and that kind of thing. So there will be that takeaway piece. If you want to just buy my books and read them and use them as references, God bless you, right? That's great. But the first part is the education piece. So offering the seminars, the webinars, even just the video series. If you could just imagine just purchasing a video series that'll walk you through all the steps on how to start your own housekeeping business. And then the second part is you can use my program. I have a program written specifically for long-term care. I have a program specifically written for hotels. I have a program specifically written for cleaning houses. I've worked in all three industries cleaning. And so you can purchase any of those. And then it's just a monthly fee to use my program.
Love it. And it's interesting, I almost feel like we're in a brainstorming session here about the
We are in a brainstorm. That's why I said I love the articulation piece of it.
So it's great because this is what one of the things I love to do as well. So one of the things I'm thinking about is, okay, so I go to, because again, one of the premises of this podcast is that organic growth is great. Trust me, you need to be great at organic growth. You need to do great work for people. You need to get referrals. You need to do what other kind of promotion I'm not anti-organic growth. I just think people sometimes that's all they focus on. They bang their heads against the wall on it. So I'm always looking at alternatives. So I'm thinking here, okay, so Ralph Peterson's going to do this. Essentially, I'm like, okay, how is he going to get to these people? Sure, he can do direct sales and marketing, et cetera. But what kind of affiliate deals can he do? Right? Who else cares about this market, has access to this market, and can he do a strategic alliance or affiliate deal with, to get access to this market? Right? It could be anything from companies that provide cleaning supplies to companies that have an interest or organizations that have an interest in training folk, in retraining folk and whatever. So. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, let's keep this brainstorm going. I'm loving this format because I think it helps our listeners to start brainstorming about their own opportunities and their own businesses as well.
Absolutely, and there are a lot of companies out there. There's the International Executive Housekeepers Association, for example. That's really how I got into professional housekeeping, was by joining the International Executive Housekeepers Association. There's the ISSA, which is ISSA is the largest organization that brings together everybody in the cleaning industry, from your suppliers of products and like your chemicals and your machines, to the people who provide the services and the maintenance to those machines, to people who own housekeeping companies and directors all over the world. And so there are organizations, to your point, that do provide an opportunity for me to reach out. But on the other side too, I have been approached by a couple of other existing housekeeping companies that work in my same field, and they don't have enough knowledge and enough experience in creating programs of their own. And so I've been approached by a couple of companies asking if I would go in and write their policies and procedures for them. And I've been very standoffish. So I haven't quite figured that out in my head on whether or not that's something I want to do, because they kind of feel to me like they want to just come in, take everything that I know, and then leave me standing here with nothing, and they just go and build their empire, which is fine. I'm just haven't quite figured out what my price tag would be for you to just take my stuff and go.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Ralph, because I just recorded another podcast, so listeners can look out for the podcast with Marianne Buchanan when it comes out, where we talked about a concept called white labeling, which is the kind of deal that you can do. And it's always that, that challenge, like it's that business decision, right? Because often you're white labeling it could be for competitors, or it could be for other markets that are not directly competitive, but maybe they siphon off from your core business, right? So the question is, hey, do I do that? Do I help someone else with what I have my expertise? And then, or do I not? And if I do it, and they want to own it and brand it, whatever, could be like a white label deal where I'm providing the back end of it for them, or it could just be a consulting deal. And it's an interesting business decision. And then obviously you raise the corresponding pricing decision. Hey, if I'm willing to do that, what makes it worth my while? So that's an interesting thinking on deals. And then the other thing that came up in what you said was, with these industry associations is, that is a great place. Listen, I always say to people, I do conferences differently than I used to in the old days. When I first started to go to conferences, I would go to every educational session because I didn't want to miss out on all the great knowledge that the speakers were giving. And first of all, when you go to more and more conferences, you tend to, there's only so much that's new in the world, but also the realization that if I get 100 things, if I'm able to implement 3 of them, I've done well. So why don't I go get the 3? Maybe you get 10 things and implement 3 instead of spending time in all of someone else to get 100, and spend the rest of the time in the hallways and over lunch and whatever, meeting with key strategic partners, industry people who have knowledge, and potentially finding information or deal partners, in the hallways, so to speak.
Yeah, and you can't speak enough about the power of the stage, right? I mean, I'd much rather be the one on the stage than the one in the booth.
That's right. That's totally right. No question about it. So, so that, that sort of competitor white labeling thing, it's interesting that that you've had those opportunities and you sort of making the business decision on whether, and if so, how you want to approach that.
Exactly. It's a challenge. And I only have so much energy to put into this. I have a real passion for running and taking care of myself, and I spend hours running. Hours a day. I do a lot of it, and I spend a lot of time reading and a lot of time writing, and I'm super passionate about all of those things. And so like I was saying, this one guy came up and he was really, really interested. They own a housekeeping company that they purchased, and so they purchased it. It was already up and running, and they just don't have all the pieces and parts to get it any better. And, on one hand, I'm excited over being asked. I'm excited over saying, oh, my gosh, let me see how I can jump in, how I can make this help, how I can work. At the other time, I'm like, I don't know, do I want to give up a little bit of time I have to help them grow their business when I should be spending all the time growing mine?
Yes, that's great. And, to sort of bring that out to a more macro lesson, what I hear is that when deal opportunities come along, one of the things that you're alluding to that's really smart is to say, hey, listen, as entrepreneurs, we're always, we're opportunity junkies, right? Our first thing is,
1,000,000%.
Yeah. Oh, there's another client. Oh, I can, whatever. And, and it's the opportunity to make money, but it's also the opportunity, right, to build something. It's the challenge. It's all those things that motivate us as entrepreneurs. And it's easy to go for, the shiny penny, so to speak, and to take that step back and say, okay, hold on a second. I became an entrepreneur to build a business and have the kind of life I want. One, is this the highest and best use of my time? Can I be more leveraging my time and energy and resources elsewhere? And 2, how will this impact my business and my life? If it's going to stop Ralph Peterson from running, you're not going to do it, right?
Not going to do it. That's right. Not going to do it.
Yeah. Hey man, I hope the client that gave you, more of their locations has some of them in warm weather, because I know, that there's a big concentration of where you go is north of New York. And for a good part of the year, I see you running and all bundled up with snow around you. So I hope they had a Florida location or something.
I got to tell you, honestly, though, running in the cold just makes me tougher. I got to tell you, I feel so strong and so dedicated and so powerful when I wake up in the morning, because I don't pay attention to the news. I don't check the weather. I don't see what's going to be like tomorrow. I don't want any excuses. I wake up in the morning, I look outside and go, a jacket or no jacket, goggles or no goggles, gloves or no gloves. That's it. I still want to get out there and run. I love adverse weather. I love it.
And you can tell when you see your content online that you definitely do. and by the way, folks, I want the listeners to understand, we're not talking about, he's not going out and running a mile or 2 or 3.
No.
Okay. What do you run on an average day? How many miles do you do a week?
I do about 60 miles a week. Okay. And I run a marathon every month.
You hear that? A marathon a month, 60 a week. So, so we're not talking about, listen, Rob, one of the things I love about you is that, and it shows in your story and whatever, it's not like nobody handed you anything. You didn't, you just bucked up at some point and got this drive to get educated. You got this drive to become a runner, and then a triathlete, and then an Ironman. And that fortitude is one of the things I actually love about working with entrepreneurs.
I appreciate that. It's intoxicating, right? The more people you hang out with like that. I know there's a guy named Keith O'Malley, and he's a comedian. He has a podcast called Keith and the Girl. But I remember years ago when I was listening to his podcast, he was getting ready to do a comedy stand-up special. And it turns out he records a brand new comedy album every year in April on his birthday. Every year, think about putting out that kind of content. Every year, he's going to make an album. Like, imagine every year you're going to write a book. Every year you're going to write 3 books, whatever. Hanging out or being exposed to that kind of a person, the person that doesn't just talk, doesn't just dream. I used to be the type of person that, oh my gosh, you hear the stories about how wonderful I'm going to be one day, until I finally said, all right, stop talking and let's start doing. And you start hanging out with people who don't talk and do. Oh my God, it's intoxicating. It's addicting. You want to hang out with those people. So if you are hanging out with people who are talking and not doing, peace and love, push them aside a little bit, and
right.
Find and hang out with people who are doers.
Listen, I agree with that. And listen, it's bad enough when you're hanging out with people who are just dreamers and talking about good stuff and then not doing it. But certainly if you're hanging out with people who are negative and complaining all the time, whatever, I mean, I do believe, it's become cliche at this point, but I really do believe in that Jim Rohn quote about that you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with most.
1,000,000%. Oh my gosh. And I think, I don't know if it was Jim Rohn or maybe even Zig Ziglar who says that the money you make is dependent on the 5 people you hang out
with. That's right. That's a variation of that. So Ralph, we're coming towards the end here. I'm going to have another question for you, but before I do my final question, I love to make sure that people know where to reach you. And listen, we haven't, and please plug some of your books, because Ralph's got a few books out, and they're on disparate topics. One is directly related to his most recent one, to the management consulting he does. And it's got one of the most fun covers I've ever seen. You've noticed that Ralph likes to talk, and he's told you that he tells stories. Well, let's just say that he's got tape on his mouth. So that one. Just tell us about where people can find you, find your stuff, and a little bit about your books.
Yeah, the best place to find me is at my website, ralphpeterson.com. But if you try to find me on any social media, it's Ralph Peterson 08, and 08 is literally just my favorite number. And it's because when I was 7, all my friends were 8 and I wanted to be 8. It's the truest and it's the stupidest, because people will go, did you want to be 9? No, I didn't. I always just wanted to be 8. So Ralph Peterson 08, that's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everything is Ralph Peterson 08. And I've written 3 books. I have a 4th book coming out, is on how to write up employees, which is one of the most challenging things most of my staff have trouble doing is disciplining staff. So that's why we're working on this new book called The Write-Up. But I have a book called Managing When No One Wants to Work, which is my first book, and that's leadership lessons from an executive housekeeper. Again, I am a housekeeper. My second book is on dieting and weight loss. I did lose 150 pounds. I was a hot mess for a while. I did weigh 350 pounds. So I was a little more than just overweight. I was obese. That's a fun word. And so I wrote a book called, I literally figured out how to win at the game of dieting. And it's all about managing my situations, treating it like it was my job. So I have a book called Adventures in Dietland, How to Win at the Game of Dieting. And then to the book that you're talking about that just came out in November, it's called Congratulations, Now Get Over Yourself, Confessions of a Management Development Coach. And that is literally the first thing I have to teach new managers is how to get over themselves, because it is never, ever, ever about you. Even when you think it's about you, even when they're talking about you, it's never about you.
That's great. Ralph, it's been such like I said earlier in the podcast, I love when we get to hang out. I love that we get to hang out in front of people now, and they get to hear your wisdom and get your energy. So I really appreciate having you on the show. I
appreciate you having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun.
Great. And thank you, Fueling Deals listeners, for tuning in. Remember, there's only one difference between companies that grow inorganically and those that don't. And it's unrelated to size, amount of capital, or any other factor, other than that the owners and executives of companies that do deals make a decision to do deals, and then they take action. Well, it's time to refuel. So until next week, Corey Kupfer, signing out.
Thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to leave Fueling Deals a rating and review on iTunes and Google. Check out all our episodes at fuelingdeals.com to find out more resources to accelerate your business growth.